You own a home, your Shangri-La, and where memories are made. But owning a home is hard. And that's where we come in. This is the Absolute Home Service Podcast. We interview local businesses to show homeowners how improvements can be made, common issues, maintenance, and everything in between. Welcome to the Absolute Home Service Podcast. And now your hosts, James McCarter
and welcome back to the Absolute Home Service Podcast. Today we got one of our very own, Thad Humphrey. He is the door department manager here at Absolute Services. Going to be bringing him on. He is a professional, many years in the trade. I'm going to be picking his brain to help our homeowners in the area. Thad, welcome, man. Thanks for taking time to come on here with us.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. So why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself, man? How long you been in the industry? What got you there? Where you are now? Where you going?
I started fresh out of high school. I was actually going to school for a diesel mechanic and realized about halfway in that I liked working on garage doors because I was doing this part-time and going to school part-time. And I preferred the doors. So I've been doing it ever since 2015. Mainly, a lot of what I've done is commercial, and then a lot of what I've done is residential as well. So it's kind of been split 50-50 in what I've been able to do. And I've been very fortunate and a lot of good experiences throughout.
You got your hand in a little bit of everything then, huh?
Yes, I did.
That's awesome. So I guess it'd be safe to say that you really know garage doors in and out and could be able to provide us some good information today, huh?
Yep, I like to think so.
Also, hey, that's all that matters. As long as you think it's what's going to happen. So getting into a couple of these questions, a lot of the first and foremost thing that I want to ask. I know it's not something that we really talked about, but I've heard it quite a bit. Over the past couple of years, I've heard stories. I've seen people talk about it. How are garage doors dangerous? Like, do they pose any danger to a homeowner?
Yes, they definitely do. So, it's basically like any mechanical thing in your house. There is some form of threat there. A lot of where the danger comes in is whenever you're servicing or working on the torsion springs. So when it comes to that, that's one of those things that we strictly recommend professionals only dealing with the torsion springs. There are a few things that you can do on your door as a homeowner, but the springs is definitely not one unless you have been professionally trained by somebody who knows what they're doing.
Got it. Fully understand that. And just heard you mention, there are a couple of things that you can do. So what are some common issues that homeowners face with their garage door and how can that be prevented? Are there things that they can do?
Yeah, so there's actually the number one service call that we get, but something we run into quite a bit it's a safety eye. So it's a very simple fix. Basically you have two safety eyes at the very bottom of your door. And what that does is that prevents the door from closing on anything. And sometimes they just get knocked, whether you keep your trash cans right by the garage door. Whenever you pull them out, you can bump them and they won't be aligned, or they can get dirty with cobwebs hanging off of your garage door, or actually, a leaf or something gets in front of them. So, if your door isn't closing for some reason, that's the first thing we always recommend to everybody is, hey, check that safety eye out, make sure there's nothing obstructing it, or make sure that it's lined up properly. Because it's a very simple fix that, you don't need to be a technician to know how to do that, basically.
Right. Yeah. What are the telltales? How would you know if the safety eye has been hit?
So basically, if your garage door is in the up position and you press the button and it'll come down just a few inches and go right back up. Some model openers, the lights will actually flash on them. Other ones don't. It just depends on what model and what brand you have. But the telltale sign is if it starts to come down and then goes right back up.
Gotcha. Are there any other safety features? Like, so what happens if the safety eye doesn't stop it? Are there anything else to stop it?
Yeah, well, and it depends a lot on the opener. That's why, we use LiftMaster openers. We strongly recommend that. I have installed other brands and I have never been impressed with anything other than a LiftMaster. Now, LiftMasters come standard with 2 entrapment devices. So one is the safety eyes that we've already talked about, and the second one is actually a pressure setting. So what that pressure setting does is say, something's underneath the garage door and the door starts to close on it. So say, the car is halfway parked in the opening, and it starts to come down. Well, instead of just forcing the door down and crushing that door or, potentially damaging the car, the pressure setting senses, hey, there's too much pressure here. So it'll actually reverse back up and open the door up that way as well.
Oh, that's very interesting. Very, very cool stuff. So with all that, there's a lot of mechanics in the door. Sounds like you got a couple of different, safety devices and stuff like that. So how often does something like that, whether it's the garage door opener or the garage door, how often should that be serviced, and what is in the garage door service?
So what we recommend is an annual maintenance. So, once a year, have somebody come in, look the door over. We personally offer, and which I'm sure you know this, but we offer an inspection with our yearly tune-ups that we offer to our members. And so what they do is they come in, they basically lubricate the door, because that's another thing that isn't really talked about a lot. Everybody knows about their springs breaking on their garage door, but not necessarily all the bearings and everything. So, there's a series of bearings throughout the garage door. So what we do is we come in, we lubricate all that, we check the opener. There are some signs that you can tell if the opener has some wear on it. So, we come in, we check everything over, and we recommend doing that annually.
Gotcha. So y'all are going to come out annually and take a look at that. Now, is there anything that as a homeowner should do in between those 11 months that you're not out there? Is there anything that I can do, like spray it down with anything? Or
Yeah, and that's actually what I was going to say is when we spray it down with lube, we always recommend or encourage our customers to be out in the garage with us while we're lubricating the door, because it's very simple, and all it takes is about 5 minutes. And you can do it once a month. You can do it once a quarter. However long you want to go in between. But it's something our technicians do not mind to show our customers at all, because it literally takes 5 minutes and say, hey, you spray here, here, and here, and it's going to help prolong the life of the door.
Now, can you over lubricate the garage door?
So really the only way you can over lubricate it is basically overspray. So, if you're spraying it and then it gets all over the door, the only issue that it's really going to cause is a cosmetics on the inside of the door.
Like discoloration or something? Pretty
much, yeah. So the lube will turn yellow if it gets on a white surface. So, most of the time the inside of the garage doors are white. So it will show like a little bit of yellow, but it's mainly cosmetic. It won't cause any mechanical failure.
Tracking, really, really good stuff. So earlier you mentioned that, by having the garage door lubricated can prolong the life of the garage door. Of a garage door that is, maybe on its last leg or doesn't have much time left, what are the signs that show that garage door needs to replace, and what factors should we take into consideration when replacing it?
So, the first sign, and it's probably the most obvious sign, is noise. So, a brand new garage door, you will barely hear it go up and down, depending on the different models of openers and everything. But you should barely be able to hear that thing go up and down. Now, a lot of times what happens is the panels will split. Whenever the panels split, it's almost like the sections themselves, as they're going through the track, they buckle. So buckling is like a telltale sign, like, hey, it's time to get somebody out here to look at this to see if it needs to be replaced. And what it can actually do, worst case scenario, it can actually fall out of the track and, obviously damage a car, or, God forbid, somebody in the garage, it could fall on them. Worst case scenario, but yeah, it's definitely possible.
I understand. So what can, talking about like the door falling out, assuming that we keep the door in the track its entire life, what are some things that homeowners can do to secure their door, or secure their garage or their belongings? How do we protect our home and our belongings?
So there's really 2 main things you can do with that. So there are actually operators out there now that have security cameras built into them. So, and it's all accessed through an app on your cell phone. You can go in and you can check your garage at any time. It alerts you when your door opens and closes. And then the second thing is a reinforced door. So it's what we call a double steel garage door. I mean, it's literally in the name. So, you have a non-insulated door, which is just a single sheet of metal, versus a double steel door, which is a sheet of metal, insulation in between, and then another sheet of metal on the inside. So you just have twice as much structure there. That's actually going to reinforce that door in case, because, most non-insulated doors can be pushed in fairly easy. But, that double steel, there's no way anybody's pushing through that.
Right. It's garage doors have really made some progressions over the last couple of years. I remember, this has been 20, 25 years ago. The garage door that we had at my house was me. My dad would be like, "Hey, get out, go open the door, man." Now you can actually control them from your phone and set. I mean, I'm assuming since it's on an app, you can probably set schedules and stuff like that for it to open and close. Or
Yep. And another cool thing is it's inside of, it's called the MyQ app with what we use through LiftMaster. It's a keychain feature. So basically you can link it with your Amazon account, and whenever you're getting a delivery, if you're getting obviously an expensive delivery, you don't want it just sitting out on your porch all day while you're at work.
Or raining or something.
Exactly. So, it'll actually go in. The Amazon driver can one time open and close the garage door, and they can set your package inside, and then the door will close afterwards. Which that's also where that security camera operator comes into play, because we don't know who's delivering all the time, but It's just an extra peace of mind. That operator has that camera on it, so you can see what's going on the whole time you're there.
Very interesting. So just a few moments ago, you mentioned like the double steel garage door and then the non-insulated door. So what or how can a homeowner improve their insulation of their garage door for save on energy costs or anything like that?
So it's actually, most people don't realize it, but there's a huge difference in a non-insulated door versus your very well insulated.
Oh, and you're going to tell us everything about it, aren't you?
Yes, I am.
Let's hear it.
So a non-insulated door is basically, it blocks the wind. That is the only insulation value that it has. It has a whopping R factor of 0. So the R value of a non-insulated door versus the nicest door is going to be, it's a 17 R value, which insulates a lot better than most walls in people's homes. Most of the insulation in people's homes is only 13.
Right.
So, especially for, attached garages, well, most of the time, those rooms that are attached to the garage or adjacent to the garage stay quite a bit cooler in the wintertime and warmer in the summertime. Well, if you can keep your garage temperature more regulated, then there's not going to be as drastic of a change from the garage to the living area that's directly adjacent to your garage.
Understand. So from what I've heard, being in and out of the office, with obviously we do HVAC as well.
Mm-hmm.
How important is the insulation of the garage when it compares to if you have a room attached to it or a bedroom or something above the garage?
So, obviously, heat rises. So in the summertime, if you have, there's many homes out there that have a bedroom directly above the garage door. So, if in the summertime it's 90 degrees in your garage, that heat is going to rise and it's going to go directly into that bedroom. And most of the time it ends up being a child's bedroom. So, obviously nobody wants their children to be uncomfortable while they're sleeping. Nobody wants to sleep in a hot room. Yeah. So, it can help tremendously in that aspect as well.
So you've talked about benefits of insulation, benefits of, having the different types of openers, as far as security and stuff like that. What different types of openers are there? As I know you mentioned having a security camera and what's on the market now.
So, you have the newest thing on the market it's called a jack shaft motor.
Okay.
Basically, in the jack shaft motor, it's a 8500W. It has a battery backup on it, and it comes with a separate LED light. So with those jack shafts, what it does, it gives you more headroom ahead or above your garage door. So you don't have an opener rail, basically getting in the way. If some people work on their vehicles in the garage. So that's very good for that. It's also the quietest opener that money can buy because there's no assembly that's moving back and forth in the middle of the garage. It hooks directly onto the drive shaft of the garage door. And then from there, you have your battery backup belt drives, which is what I was explaining that has the security camera.
Yeah.
With the same deal, that operator will run 10 cycles with no power at all. So say, you have a power outage and you're locked out of the house because your garage door won't open. Well, with this, you can run your door 10 cycles, which a cycle is up and down one time before that battery dies, essentially. And then you have just your standard belt drive openers, which all the new belt drive openers have integrated LED lights. So that's huge because if you have a garage, most of the time they're not very well lit. So those LED lights just add so much more light into the garage, especially when you're getting in and out at nighttime. And then you go all the way down to a chain drive opener, which is still a good unit. They just don't tend to last as long as the other two, and they're quite a bit noisier as well.
Is there a difference? Is there a difference in kind of like, warranty or anything like that with chain drive versus belt drive?
Yeah. So actually with the chain drives, we offer a 1 year on parts and labor across the board. On the belt drives, we actually offer a lifetime warranty on the electrical motor inside of the unit and the belt of the unit as well. Because it's a lot, LiftMaster kind of decided a couple years ago that, hey, people were thinking this belt isn't going to last as long as the chain, which really isn't the case because the belt has stranded cable inside of the belt. So it actually ends up lasting longer than a chain. But so LiftMaster kind of combated that with a lifetime warranty on all their belt drive units.
That's a very good flex, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. Yes, it is. So
you've just given us like 4 or 5 different options with chain drives, belt drives, cameras, backup. Would you call that other one a jack shaft, like a direct drive?
Yeah, direct drive.
So how does a homeowner go about choosing the right system for them?
So it's really all about the application. Because there's some applications that a jack shaft motor doesn't make sense. And then there's other applications where it's really the only option that would make any sense.
Right.
So a lot of it depends on application. Now, I will say when it comes to either a chain drive or a belt drive, I always recommend a belt drive because the cost difference isn't a whole lot. And most of the time, they'll end up lasting about 50% longer. So it's a lot more bang for your buck with the belt drive motors versus the chain drives.
Well, and then having that lifetime warranty in there as well. Exactly. I mean, that more than cuts the cost or investment of any of those systems, right?
Yep.
So, we live in a world of smart home. Whether you've got Google, whether you've got the Nest products or the Ring or anything like that. How does a homeowner or anybody purchasing any of these new garage door openers, how do they ensure that they're compatible with their current smart home or which brand to buy?
So really the MyQ set app, which is what I was discussing earlier, where you see that camera on the security operator. Mm-hmm. So it's compatible with pretty much any of these. I mean, I've heard it works with ADT, it works with Ring. And it's still.
I know it works with Vivint. I've got that in my house.
Gotcha. Yeah, I have Ring at my house, so I know it's compatible with that as well. But the major feature of that MyQ is you can open and close your garage door from anywhere in the world.
Really?
So say you're at work and your in-laws are coming from out of town, or whatever the scenario may be. It's as simple as pulling up the app on your phone, clicking the button, it'll say garage door opening, and it tells you how long that door has actually been open as well. So
that's a good question. So what happens if, what that stops is, leaving the home and
forgetting to close the garage.
The wife's always the one that does it. It's never forgetting to close the door, right? So you'd be able to close it. Is there anything that would tell you, hey, your door's open? Because I know it's open. I opened it. How do I know that I forgot and left it open?
Well, so actually there is a setting in that app you can go in and set up, and it'll send you a notification if you're after X amount of time. If your garage door has been open for, say the time you have allotted is 15 minutes. Well, hey, your door's been open for 15 minutes, and bam, it sends you an alert saying your garage door is open. Do you want to leave it open or you want to close it? And then you can go in the app and, opt to leave it open or go ahead and close it.
Yeah, these new products are amazing. There's
Yeah.
there's definitely a lot to them. So, you've talked about some, different bearings and torsion springs with the garage door. So, what are some common reasons for garage door opener malfunctions? I know you mentioned the the safety eyes would be one of them. What's some other malfunctions that can go on with the garage door opener?
So really, there's kind of an assortment of things that can happen. A lot of the times when we get a call that my opener is not opening my door, it can actually be an issue with the garage door, because what a lot of people don't realize is the garage door and the opener are actually two separate units. Now they work in unison, but they are essentially two separate units. So you don't have to necessarily replace your garage door when you replace your opener. You don't have to replace your opener when you replace your garage door.
Got it. So what else could go on with the opener? Because like you talked about, the jack shaft not having near as many parts and pieces. On the ones that for like the chain drive and the belt drive, are there anything that can go wrong with the chain drive system?
Yeah. So what happens on specifically the chain drive system? It doesn't. I personally have never seen it happen on a belt drive. Like I said, I've been doing this since 2015, so I've been in the trade 8 years. And I've never seen a belt drive do it. But what it is there's on the chain assembly, it is all a rigid assembly. So all that means is that it is all straight bolted together. There is no give in the chain assembly itself. So what happens is as the door is opening and closing, obviously, it jerks quite a bit as it's going up and down just from the sudden starts and sudden stops.
Right.
And so all that motion gets transferred through the chain to the top sprocket of the opener, because the top of the opener basically just has a sprocket that sticks out and it spins. And that's what, pushes and opens the door. So where that one's rigid versus a belt drive, it's actually got a spring assembly where the belt connects to the trolley. And so in that assembly, that spring dampens all the motion of the door going up and down, of the sudden starts and sudden stops. So, it's that's why you just don't see belt drives fail. Now,
right.
Like I said, you can have a manufacturer defect, but like I said, most of the time that's within the warranty specs of the opener, so it's replaced.
Well, I'm sure with all those sudden starts and stops with the chain drive, have you ever sseen like that sprocket on top of it snap off? I'm sure it probably breaks that off.
Yeah, well, so and that's essentially what happens is whenever that all the motion from the sudden start and sudden stop, it actually transfers that top sprocket, and there's a bushing inside of there that wears out. So when that bushing wears out, that sprocket is literally just rubbing against the frame of the opener. So it just eats its way through the shaft the sprocket's attached to, and the sprocket will literally just pop off.
So I've heard terminology as far as like balancing, right? For like for the garage door.
Yep.
Does that play an effect on the operation of the garage door opener? Or?
Yes, it does. So how I like to explain it to all of our clients is basically your springs are what balance the door. So your springs are basically the bicep of the garage door.
Oh, I like that.
So that's what opens and closes it. The opener is essentially just pushing it back and forth.
Okay, so, it's guiding it.
Yes, it's guiding it essentially.
Okay, all right.
So, with that, if you have a door that's not balanced properly, as in it's either got the wrong springs or a broken spring, then what that does is that puts a lot more strain on your opener. So, you can have the best opener in the world, but if you're running it with, a broken spring on it, it's going to tear up that opener. So that's why we recommend regular maintenance on them, yearly maintenance, so that, hey, we can catch this stuff before it becomes a bigger issue than what it needs to be.
Absolutely. So I go out to my garage right now. How can I test to see if my garage door is balanced properly? So I don't want to mess with those springs because they're dangerous.
Yeah, exactly.
How can I test it?
The easiest thing to do, pretty much every opener that's ever been manufactured has got a red pull cord on it. It's actually an emergency release is the proper terminology for it. So if you go out there, you can pull. I recommend doing it in the down position. That way, if your balance is off, it's not going to go, falling down and, potentially hurt, destroy.
That's a great tip.
Yeah, so I recommend doing it while it's in the down position. I grab a hold of the door with one hand, and you can grab that red pull cord and pull down on it. It'll release it from the opener.
Okay.
So from there, you can manually open and close your garage door, and it's going to tell you quite a bit. So if it kind of wants to float up, then you know your springs are too hot. So if it doesn't want to stay, sealed on the ground, then you don't have the correct springs. If it's very hard to lift up off the ground, one of two things: either you have a broken spring or your springs are incorrect. So there's technically 3 balance points that your door should pass on our inspection. One is staying on the ground without lifting up by itself. The second one is at the halfway point. It should balance perfectly. So it should not raise up. It should not fall down. It should just stay right at the halfway point. And then in the all the way up position, it should stay open past the header. So basically the framing around the garage door opening, it should stay up past that or just, right there at it.
That's a really good test, which kind of, walks right into our next point. And, do appreciate you sharing that with us. That's amazing information. So, you talked about having 3 balance points, and you've talked about, the dangers and the inspection and et cetera. So let's say homeowner does have a problem with their garage door or their garage door opener. What are some important factors that they need to consider when choosing a garage door repair company, and how to find one in their area?
So what I recommend to everybody is do your research. There's not very many door companies that I feel like do a proper job of servicing their customers. Basically what it all boils down to is an inspection sheet of some sort. There's many door companies out there that are guilty of just, going out, hey, this is your problem, and fixing it. And without looking at the complete system. So, whenever you go in and you say, oh yeah, your spring's broke, because that's a very easy thing to spot. Well, if your spring's broke, that means that your door's at X amount of cycles. So I'll go into that a little bit. So every garage door spring has a life cycle rating. Your standard door is right at 10,000 cycles. So in a cycle is, which I spoke a little bit about it earlier, but a cycle is the door going up and down one time. That's one complete cycle. Okay. So your standard springs are supposed to be, rated for 10,000 cycles. So if your springs are at 10,000 cycles, that means all the bearings that we spoke about earlier. So you have bearings, in the rollers of the door, they have bearings. The tube that the springs sit on, those have bearings in them. There's a lot more than just meets the eye on the garage door. So that's why I strongly recommend, whenever you're scheduling something, with a garage door company, hey, do you all have some sort of inspection where you'll look the whole door over versus just coming in and, fixing what's wrong, quote unquote.
Right. So I want to dig a little bit more into this cycle thing, because that's like the second or third time I've heard you bring it up. What's the importance of cycles? So if it's 10,000 cycles, are there other options, like higher or lower options, or like what's the importance of a cycle?
Yeah, and I'm glad you bring that up because I was hoping we could get to that.
All right, let's hear it, man. I'm getting antsy now.
So with the cycle count, there's so like on a standard door, your end bearings are rated for 10,000 cycles, which the end bearings are just what carry the tube that the springs ride on. Okay. Your center bearing, which is in the center of the spring assembly, it's rated for 10,000 cycles. Most of your rollers are rated for 10,000 cycles. So all these parts are rated for the same amount of cycles. So when that spring breaks, chances are there's other issues going on. And if you don't have an inspection sheet of some kind, you won't ever catch it. Right. So, we actually offer something to improve that. So we have what's called an overhaul. And we go in and we replace all the moving parts on the garage door, all the parts I just spoke of, plus a few extras. So your cables on the side, stuff like that, because they can get frayed. But we actually replace them in the overhaul with springs that are 80,000 cycles. The rollers are actually nylon sealed rollers. So basically all that means is there's no dirt and grime that can get inside of those bearings and wear them out quicker. And they're pre-lubricated from the factory. So they're basically hassle-free rollers. There's less lubricating that you have to do on a door with those type of rollers. Right. And then, basically all the way around, you can improve and, so say, a 10,000 cycle door lasts 5 to 7 years. Well, essentially an 80,000 cycle door spring is going to last 8 times longer than that. So,
right. That was actually where I was going to roll into that. So I appreciate you bringing that up. So 10,000 cycles, that's lasting 5 to 7 years roughly. And is that with proper maintenance or is that without maintenance?
So that's without proper maintenance.
Okay.
You can get a little bit longer out of them, but it also depends on how often you use the door. There's a lot of people. I know I'm guilty of it. I use my garage door like my front door. I mean, I've maybe gone through the front door of my house a handful of times.
I don't even know where my key is.
Exactly. So, whenever I'm leaving or my wife's leaving or, we're taking the dog or our kid somewhere, you go out the garage door because that's where the vehicles are.
Right.
So, if you take that and then you have, a couple teenagers that you throw in the mix there, well, now this door is, working for 4 different people instead of 2 different people.
Right.
So it doubles how many cycles that door is getting ran a day.
Which is going to cut its life in half, essentially.
Yeah,
right.
Pretty much. So, it all depends on the use of the door. And that's why, we have a lot of customers that are busy. They don't have time to be messing with their springs, every 2 or 3 years.
Right.
So that's why we offer these, and but people love them. We get nothing but good reviews out of it because it essentially takes the door and multiplies it by 8 on how long it'll last.
Yeah, and that's a very great and reasonable offer too. So with the overhaul, you're essentially, I mean, you're overhauling it. You're doing a full oil change, a full service on this door, right?
Exactly. So it's essentially taking all the parts that could be bad and replacing them.
Awesome. That is great stuff. So what's like the warranty on something like that?
So on our overhaul, we actually offer a lifetime warranty on parts and labor.
Wow.
And that is through us, the company. So, we're not the middleman with the manufacturer. If something happens to the door, it's as simple as calling us out and it's taken care of. We're going to make sure we make it right with you because that's the whole value in it. We're here for our customers. So, if you buy that overhaul, we're going to make sure that whatever happens, it's right.
You're very confident in that overhaul, huh?
I am very confident in the overhaul.
So I'm going to go out on a limb here.
Mm-hmm.
What would you do? Or how well would I be set up? Because I'm assuming, like the garage door itself,
mm-hmm.
especially if you have one of those, the steel ones that you mentioned earlier, mm-hmm. With proper care, they should take a while. So what kind of experience or what kind of relief would I get if just entertain me on this? Mm-hmm. If I did an overhaul and got one of those belt drive openers.
All right. So that is such a common occurrence that we actually have a name for it. We've nicknamed it the motor haul.
Motor haul. Okay.
Motor haul. So it's an overhaul and a motor. So I get excited, man. I love talking about this stuff.
You're breathing fast.
So with that, you essentially take every single component on that door that could ever fail and you replace it with new. So you've basically, instead of having to go out and buy a brand new door, you've taken a fraction of the money that you would have spent on a new door, and now you're just fixing everything that's wrong with the door you have now, and all the parts are new. So it's essentially a new door. It just looks the same.
And you got that double lifetime warranty on that belt and on that service.
Exactly.
So if you're the whole door is new. Right. Besides the actual door itself. So besides the looks of the door, all the components are brand new. And which leads me to my next question. How can someone make their door more aesthetically pleasing and complement their home? So you just, invested in this door and you got this, this motor haul service, right? You got everything replaced, but you still have the same door. What can you do to kind of spice that up a little bit? So
there's actually accent pieces that you can buy for your door that we sell. So with that, they're basically handles and straps is what we call them. So they make it look like a barn door essentially. And it's relatively low cost, and it honestly, it changes the whole look of the garage door just by adding those few little pieces.
I can actually speak to experience on that one because I have those on my door. Mm-hmm. And when the guy first came out, and changed my garage door, I wasn't 100% set on them because I was thinking barn look, you know what I mean? Yeah. And I was like, I don't know really how I'm going to feel about that. Mm-hmm. And he just kind of held them up there and put them on the door. And I'm glad that I went with them because it made that whole door look completely different. I mean, it doesn't even look like the same door. It's amazing.
Yeah. And what's crazy is if you have a neighborhood full of full of doors that do not have those straps and handles on it, and then you have one that does, well, that one sticks out way more, and it makes it appear like to be a more expensive door, even though it's really still the same door.
Yes, and that's you just spoke the exact situation. Like I live on the end of a cul-de-sac, right?
Mm-hmm.
And like all of our doors are all the same. They're all the same color. Everything except when you come by mine, it's like boom, here's my garage door, and you know what it is, right?
Yeah.
Which is fantastic because you do get compliments, right?
Mm-hmm.
So in a day where you've got all the smart home and you got all this, people are looking for aesthetics. People are looking for curb appeal, right?
Mm-hmm.
Which, is kind of a great way to kind of go into as far as like curb appeal. Mm-hmm. From what I've seen, there are now, multiple different options that you can choose, for a garage door. So I just kind of wanted to walk through that process real quick. So from what I've gathered, there's hundreds of different, combinations, whether it's color or glass or whatever it is that you can do, how I'm a visual person, right? I want to see that. Like, how can you help me, like, do you have like samples or something to let me know what this is going to look like?
Actually, one thing that I think has changed the garage door industry since they've done it is you can actually go out on, so we use Safeway and Haas is just the manufacturers that we use for our garage doors. Both of them offer a basically build your own door type of situation on their website. And you can actually go take a picture of your house, and then you put in, it basically has a little block that you expand out and fit right over your garage door. And then you can test out every different type of.
Come on, man.
Yeah.
Are you serious?
Yes. So it's essentially you already know what the finished product's going to look like before you even purchase it.
Wow. So you can try it on.
Exactly.
You test it out and see what it's going to look like. So
the fitting room of garage doors.
The fitting room of garage doors. I love that. You're gonna that was designed here, man. Let me ask you this: how many marriages do you think you've saved for not making the wrong decision? You're your own therapist, man. Garage door expert and therapist. I mean, you out here saving relationships and doors one block at a time. That's awesome. Man, this has been awesome, really good stuff and information. There's, garage doors they're very intricate. They're very, very deep. There's a lot that can go into it. So there's also some accessories that go along with it too, right? So what can you do? Like, what are some other important considerations? Like, I'm changing out my garage door openers. Anything else I need to take into account? Like, opener or like remotes or, keypads or anything like that?
Yeah. So, with the remotes, I mean, people can have as many remotes as they need, essentially. So, if you have 4 people in the household that drive and you use your garage door like the front door, you need 4 remotes. Or you can take a keypad. So what basically all a keypad is it acts as a remote, but you have to punch a code in. And then from there, after you punch the code in and press enter, it opens the garage door.
Huh. So, well, you can take it out. That can be your pass for people coming over or, family, friends or something like that, where you don't have to give out remotes to a whole bunch of people. I'm sure that can get pretty costly getting a bunch of remotes, right? Mm-hmm. Man, Thad, this has all been some really, really good stuff. So one last thing that I wanted to ask is, we keep alluding back to the springs and the dangers of the springs. And, from what I've gathered, when that spring breaks, like, your door is down, like there's no moving. Like, it's very difficult unless you're, a professional like yourself that knows what you're doing. Right. Mm-hmm. So what are some telltale signs? How can I know, like, what should I be looking for with my spring? Because the last thing that I want to do is have my car stuck inside my garage.
Yeah. So really, whenever, you get your garage door maintenance, if you're opening your door and it doesn't hit those 3 balance points, like what we were speaking about earlier,
Right.
That could mean that spring is beginning to weaken. So when the springs are beginning to weaken, then obviously they're on their way out.
Right.
Another thing you can look for is, we call it snaking. So whenever you look at that spring on the tube itself, it'll almost look like it's doing something like this, where it's almost like a zigzag back and forth.
Right.
So that's another thing that could be a telltale sign. Hey, your spring's about to break.
Right.
Also, rusted springs. So these springs are under a lot of tension. That's what makes them so dangerous. So whenever you have a spring that is starting to rust and corrode, well, now that the metal is no longer at its structural integrity, so it's lost some of that integrity with that rust. So that's a third thing that you can look for. But those are really the only signs of spring about to break. Now, what a lot of people don't realize is that when your spring breaks, you're trapped in your garage until you can muscle that door up, which can be quite the feat, or until you get an expert out there to get it fixed. So, it's just another thing to keep in the back of your mind whenever you're thinking about, purchasing new springs. Like, hey, I don't want to be stuck in my garage. I know for me, being late to work is detrimental. That could be a huge deal.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you just want to keep those things in mind. Hey, you park your car in here, that's potential you're trapped if that spring breaks.
And it's a huge inconvenience,
Yes.
So I do have one follow up on that, because you said something kind of sparked my interest here. So you got those 3 balance points, right, that you talked about earlier.
Mm-hmm.
You can tell if the spring is weakening by it not hitting those spots. So I'm assuming that it won't stay in the middle, or it won't stay up, right? It'll obviously stay on the ground, right?
Yes.
So can I fix that? Can I just, add some more tension to it? Like just.
Well, I don't recommend it if you're not a professional.
Yeah.
But in theory, what happens is whenever your spring starts weakening like that, when you go to start adding turns to it, because that's essentially how you do it, is you take and add turns to the spring. Well, you already have a spring that is losing its integrity. So once you start adding more tension onto it and essentially making that spring hotter, it only increases the chance of it breaking.
Oh, you just signed its death certificate.
Yeah, well, yeah, it can be. I mean, it can be very scary.
What's the craziest thing that you've ever seen with a garage door?
So, as I mentioned earlier, I did commercial garage doors extensively. So I was on a 12-foot ladder, rewinding an old spring. It's funny that you asked that question right after we were talking about this. But I was rewinding an old spring, and that spring broke. And when it broke, it was an old rusty spring. There was a lot of chemicals in this factory, so it was very corroded. And whenever that spring broke, it was basically a dust cloud. I had my helper there with me, and he was basically my ground support. And he said he couldn't see me for about 10 seconds. So he didn't know if he was going to see me falling out of that cloud of rust or what was going on. But that was definitely
Put on a David Blaine show, change that.
Yeah, exactly. That was definitely the scariest situation I've been in with a garage door, because you just don't expect it.
Right.
And it's potentially dangerous because you're on top of a ladder. If it startles you enough, it'll knock you off the ladder.
Well, and just imagine if you had no idea what you were doing, or you just following a video on Facebook or YouTube or something like that, right? At least you expect it.
Yeah. And you
gotta know.
Every time I wound a spring, that's what I expected was for it to break, even though the chances of it were very slim. Like I said, in 8 years, it's happened once.
Right.
So, it's not a common occurrence, but it is. If your hands are in the wrong spot when that happens, it could be very bad. It could be a bad day.
So I want to ask you one more thing. So I've heard this. This just floods of information is just coming back, just stuff that I've heard over the years. So I had one of the technicians out at my house. I mean, this has been several years ago, but I've always heard this myth. Hopefully you can clarify this for us. Should I or should I not walk underneath my garage door while it's moving until it stops? Like, what's the safety precautions there? Like, bust that myth for us?
So what I recommend to everybody is it is still mechanical.
Mm-hmm.
So, I recommend, me personally, I don't walk under my garage door until it's completely done moving. And that's just from experience and seeing it happen. Those doors can fall. If those springs break, that door's coming down. It's not going to be graceful either. It's basically a guillotine.
And that opener, it won't stop it?
So, well, it just depends. I mean, sometimes it will, sometimes it won't. But, for me, I'm not willing to risk it. So
better be safe than sorry.
Exactly. So I recommend just waiting for your door to come to a complete stop in the open position before you begin to, either back your vehicle out or walk underneath of it. I strongly recommend waiting until it's done moving.
Okay. And then last question. You've mentioned maintenance on your door.
Mm-hmm.
That's something that you all offer?
Yes,
is the door department, what does that look like?
So we have tune-ups, and then we also have our membership program. So with our membership program, it's actually the best deal because you get tune-ups on multiple trades and not just the garage door. So, our whole company is ran, which but our whole company is ran off of customer service. So we want to provide the best customer service for our customers at all times. So in that's why we offer these inspections. That's why we go in so far in depth in all of these things and, in our training with the guys, because we want to make sure our customer is safe and happy at all times. So, in that membership program, that's definitely the best deal with it, but we can also we offer tune-ups as well.
Okay. So I want to tune up. I've got something wrong with my door. Tell everybody how they're going to get a hold of you, Ted.
So it's as simple as calling the office and just, saying, hey, I think I may have a few things going on with my garage door. I'd like to schedule a tune-up. And, we can get you scheduled. Most of the time we can do same day service. So, that all plays into making sure that customer's happy, because if somebody's trapped inside of their garage and can't get out, it's an emergency. So we need to get there and get them out of their garage so they can continue on with their day.
Yeah, fully understand. I completely agree, and we'll be sure to post your contact information with the phone number for the office and get that done and put up. But man, really appreciate your time coming on here. Is any parting words of wisdom in the world of garage doors?
Like I said, well, the big joke in the garage door world is if a bolt is red, don't touch it. So that's another thing.
Do not touch red bolts.
Do not touch red bolts. Do not try to loosen red bolts. And even sometimes they're not marked red. So, like I said, just know what you're looking at before you do it. And that way you can make sure you keep all your fingers and toes.
Well, we greatly appreciate it, and giving us and sharing your wisdom with your many years of experience in this industry, and definitely hope that people are going to be reaching out to you. And as always, man, it's a pleasure talking to you.
All right, you too. Thanks, James.
Man.